When I was growing up, we had to live next to some pretty interesting neighbors. One of them would throw his used cigarette butts in our yard. Another one would literally watch us from their window if we had an event and we didn't invite them. But the one that really takes the cake was my neighbor Eric. So here's a story about the time I lived next to a plug. It's 2009 and a new family moves in next door. They had two kids who were about the same age as my sister and I, so we hung out a lot. But something that I noticed is that their dad was just a little bit weird. Not like creepy weird, but I noticed sometimes he would do things that were strange and honestly a little bit stupid. His eyes were always red, he'd listen to strange music, he'd stare at the fish tank for like half an hour. Eric was, as I would later find out, a stoner. And yes, this is the same Eric from the fireworks video. But he was cool enough, certainly cooler than the other neighbors. He let us get away with more things than we probably should have. But one of the rules that he did have was that we were never allowed to go in the basement. And I wasn't really much of a rule breaker as a kid, so I just kind of followed that. But one day we were playing inside with a kickball, and yes, I understand how stupid that sounds, but the door to the basement was for once open, and when I kicked the ball, it ended up rolling down the stairs to the basement. So I go down to the basement to go get the ball, and when I get down there, I notice all of these tables with these plants growing on them, and they had water and lights and everything, and I just stood there for a minute like, what the hell am I looking at? And then it finally clicked. Oh, they're gardening indoors. And I know that looking back, that's like the stupidest conclusion I could have come to, but remember, I was 7, I didn't know any better, and that was the only answer that made sense. And I just kept thinking that for like another 6 years. I'd see people come over and then leave with backpacks that were full. Didn't think anything of it. One of their kids asked me one time if I'd seen it, and I was just like, yeah, it's a garden in the basement. So because Eric was routinely getting high on his own supply, he did some things that were pretty stupid. Like one time Eric was fixing up their kitchen, and he decided that he wanted to put in granite countertops. Now a normal person would probably measure before they got the granite for their kitchen, but not Eric. He just went down to Home Depot and found a fucking massive piece of granite and said, yeah, that looks like it'll probably fit. Shocker, it didn't fit. This thing was so unbalanced that if you leaned on it, it would start teetering like a fucking seesaw. But did Eric go back and get a properly sized piece? Nope. Who needs that when you've got 2 perfectly good deck posts laying around? There you go, problem solved. Now you can eat your breakfast every morning without getting crushed, and as a bonus, you can even get some splinters in your leg. What more could you want in your kitchen? So a few years go by, and one day I'm talking with my parents, and by this point we didn't live next to Eric anymore, and we were talking about some of our old neighbors from that neighborhood. And my mom tells me, you know Eric was a huge stoner, right? Really? He was? Yeah, his favorite band was Fish, and half of what he ate was chicken nuggets. Of course he was a stoner. And that was what got me to finally put the pieces together. I thought it was super funny that Eric was a plug, as well as the fact that I was 7 years old and stumbled upon a grow operation, and I was just like, yeah, this is normal. This is supposed to be here. So that's the story about the time I lived next to a plug. Let me know down in the comments if you want to hear more stories about Eric, and remember, never ever get high on your own supply. Need more videos to watch? Here's a playlist of all the videos I've ever made on this channel.